This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, find the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, and you can like us on Facebook and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer. And Tiny, how are you doing today? You are under the weather.
Freaking sick, man.
Yeah.
Not good.
Because you got so sick of how excited you were about Rogue One?
That's what it is.
That wasn't a good transition.
Not so much.
Yeah, our guest is shaking his head. So anyway, today on the podcast, we are talking Rogue One, a Star Wars story. The first standalone Star Wars movie from the Star Wars anthology standalone movies that Lucasfilm and Disney are putting out. And joining us in the studio today is Mr. Tony Troxell. How's it going, bud?
Pretty good. Just actually got out of a showing of it myself. So
nice. And why don't you tell everyone about yourself and everything? Because this is your first guest time on this podcast. Go ahead.
I know that this isn't the first time we've all sat together, but it's the first time I've been on for you guys. You were kind enough to bless me with your presence a few months ago talking about Shocktober. But yeah, I'm Tony Troxell. I run the local blog Geeking in Indiana, which is a blog that showcases items that I think would be of geek interest to Hoosier geeks. I also run the Twitter feed Indiana Geeking, which is lamest humble brag ever incoming. The second best Twitter feed in Indianapolis is voted by readers of Nouveau magazine in 2015 and 2016.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I think we were number 199 or something.
Sure, probably.
I love you guys. You weren't even nominated.
We weren't even.
We were nominated for an Indie Podnet Award, which I think is because you nominated us.
But I have not been nominated for an Indie Podnet Award, so you've got me there.
See, there we go.
Yes.
So, and I have not been a guest at cons. I have not been on any podcast stages. So
okay.
So you got me there. You do have me there.
You'll get there, buddy. You'll get there.
I can only hope, man. Maybe just one day, I'll be as cool as the Obsessive Viewer guys.
Oh, God.
Aim higher, buddy.
Yes, aim way higher. But yeah, thank you for joining us, and thanks for all your helping coverage of Shocktober in Irvington and your support for us and everything. Haven't gotten any PayPal notifications or anything from you. There must be an issue with PayPal.
That's going to be coming 2017. We're going to...
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm just kidding, of course.
Sadly, I'm not, but continue.
Well, we're not going to stop you there. But anyway, so yeah, and you have a great blog, obviously. We're big fans of it, and you've spotlighted us numerous times on it, so we are incredibly appreciative of that. And we didn't have to pay you much to do that, so that's really great.
Yeah,
because I haven't gotten any PayPal notifications either from that donate button.
It's kind of tricky because with the fiscal year ending and the
finances,
Rebel Alliance,
money's got to go to certain areas for those tax write-offs, and you just got to juggle money around. So.
Exactly.
Pizza Roll's mascot fees.
Exactly. Yes, she demands a lot.
I forgot to bring the tithe of catnip. She's not going to claw up my backpack, is she?
No promises.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this episode goes. I have the attack signal ready. All right, and before we get into our review here, we're not going to have a news segment. We're likely not going to have a potpourri. This is going to be all Rogue One, but we'll have a non-spoiler review, and then we'll go into a spoiler review. You guys will be prompted, no problem. But real quickly, just for people who want to follow you and tweet you spoilers and stuff for movies, where can they do that?
Do not. we were talking before we started recording about someone who tweeted me a spoiler at midnight Thursday night, Friday morning, and Yeah, if you follow me on social media, if you're looking through my Instagram feed, you'll see pictures of essentially my middle finger. Calling out people who post spoilers. But yeah, like I said, on Twitter, I'm at Indiana Geeking. Look for me on Facebook, Geeking in Indiana. Pretty much if you look up Indiana Geeking or Geeking in Indiana, you're going to find me.
Perfect. And of course, we'll have links to all this in the show notes of this episode. The show notes, of course, for this episode can be found at obsessiveviewer.com/OV198. All right, let's get into this. So, Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. Just for the two people on the planet who don't know, the plot description, according to IMDb, is the Rebel Alliance makes a risky move to steal the plans for the Death Star, setting up the epic saga to follow. This is the the fourth Star Wars prequel that we've gotten, guys? Is that right?
It is.
Yeah.
But let's not call it a prequel. Let's not stain it.
Yeah,
with that.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm still going to call it a prequel. No,
because you're a horrible person.
And I like to troll people that love Star Wars, even though this is the second year that we've gotten a new Star Wars movie, and it's the second time that I've seen that Star Wars movie like more than once in the theater, and it's getting harder and harder to troll you guys because I'm starting to slowly become a bigger Star Wars fan. And it's just not that much fun when I can't make fun of it. Yeah. So let's start this off with just kind of going around the panel here and asking how you guys saw the movie, what format, what day, I guess, would be in particularly of particular interest, and what format and everything. So, Tiny, you haven't really said that much, and you're under the weather, so I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
How and when did you see Rogue One: A Star Wars Story?
It took me forever. I didn't see it till Monday after it came out, which is forever nowadays.
Right.
Because I had the day off, and I couldn't take the day off to go to a midnight screening or anything. But I had Monday off, so I wanted to avoid the crowds, and I went to a matinee. I went to the Dolby Theater at the Castleton AMC.
The Dolby Atmos. Is that the Dolby that's just upgrading the sound quality of it? Is that correct?
I think there's actually some visual upgrades too.
Oh, okay.
To an extent, yeah.
Nice.
I'm not sure how they're upgraded, but they do. It is a little bit better.
Okay.
But the sound is the big show, and that's the big feature of that theater. It has a really cool aesthetic to it. It just has it feels like you're inside a speaker, kinda. It's got a really cool feel to it. So that was my first time being in that theater. Having said that, I liked it. I thought it was cool, but I went to a matinee and I paid $14 to see the damn movie.
Oh yeah.
So they charge you like you're seeing a 3D movie.
Okay.
And I mean, it was a great experience. And if you're like kind of a sound geek or something, go for it. But for me, I'm not sure if it's worth that extra money for me personally. But if the next showing was like 2 hours after that, so I was like, screw it, I'll just pay the $14. I don't want to wait. But, I had a great experience. It was about half full. And that was in the middle of the day on a Monday. So, hello, nice. Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah.
Tony, how about you? How did you see it?
All right. Much like Tiny, I saw the first time Saturday at 12:30, also in the Dolby Theater.
Nice.
One thing that they did show was they were showing a difference in the picture before the film. They did here's the normal picture, and it shows like the black and how it's still like off black, slightly gray, and then here's our true color and all that. They were doing that, which, and I'll get to why I've really noticed this in a minute, but it also caused the picture to be kind of dark.
It did.
Interesting.
It was kind of, there were parts in Rogue One that were very difficult to see, but it was, when you could see it, it was very crisp.
Yeah.
It was a good picture. The seats were comfortable. There was plenty of elbow room. The sound, like I said, was just incredible.
Yeah.
I think they had speakers under the seats and all that. The second time I saw it was a 4:45 showing in one of the digital theaters over at AMC Traders Point.
Yep.
And this, once again, the assigned seating, recliners, not as nice as a Dolby, but I was able to see a lot of the stuff better. The picture was a lot brighter. It wasn't as crisp, maybe, but it's still digital. It's still bright. to go back to Dolby, I think the Dolby screen's also a little bit bigger. We're not talking IMAX size.
Okay.
Right.
And it could just be the fact that I have the memory of Dory, but just keep swimming. But like I said, it seemed like the Dolby picture was a little bit bigger, but it wasn't as bright. And I could see some stuff better on this time around.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is. I think it is a little bit bigger of a screen, and I know what you're talking about the darkness. Yeah. I noticed that right off the bat too.
And to the person who brought their look like a 4-month-old child to the theater, I understand you really want to see Star Wars. I understand the little one's a little young to be trusting to the care of a babysitter. And I do give you props for being courteous enough that as soon as they would start fussing, you would leave the theater. But
was that in the Dolby screening that you went to?
No, that was the one
tonight?
this afternoon.
This afternoon.
So it's like, I understand. I give you props for when the little one started fussing, getting out of there, but make better choices.
Yeah. And that I'd go on a tangent. But
yeah,
like I understand. Yeah. Like you said, all the things you said, you understand everything. Sure.
Yeah, I'm a dad.
But
I understand.
But it's also, it's the first week of it. Like if you're that hard up to see it and everything, work something out maybe. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't have kids, so.
You guys are assholes.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Actually, that was my nickname in my English comp class over the summer.
Okay.
Nice.
True story.
So that's great. So, okay. And then I guess I'll go ahead with mine.
Yeah.
That's how it works, I think.
Yeah, it is. I completely forgot about that. So, okay. So first of all, both of you guys 2D only?
2D, yes.
2D? Gotcha.
Not a 3D fan.
Me neither. I went to, having said that, I went to a 7:30 showing Thursday night, the night that it came out, with Fecus and his brother and a bunch of guys. He had bought the tickets beforehand, so he got 3D tickets. So it wasn't necessarily my choice, but that's cool. I still owe him the $16 for it. But Fecus, when you're listening to this, we'll settle up. But anyway, we went to the 3D IMAX screening at Castleton on the north side. I think it was an IMAX screening, but what struck me about it was this was the 7:30 screening for the new Star Wars movie, and like I remembered last year when we went to Force Awakens, we went to I think it was the 10 o'clock showing or 7. I'm not sure which
10
one.
10 o'clock.
It was 10.
Yeah. But I remember like there were they were out the door. Everyone was lined up and ready to go. Here it was like I walked in about a half an hour early, and like there was like no fanfare in the lobby or anything. There was no one was really. They didn't have that big fanfare or anything. Which kind of. I don't know. It didn't surprise me that much because, I get it. It's not a saga movie. It's not an episode movie. But it's still a Star Wars movie. I kind of thought that if this is the second Star Wars movie out of the Disney deal, like it would still have that kind of thing. But yeah,
well, if I may,
sure.
One thing you got to remember, like when Phantom Menace came out, it was after a drought. There was no real new stuff. So that's when you had people lining up overnight for pre-sale tickets. Then you had the lines around the building on opening night. When Force Awakens came out once again, it was after a drought, and and it was also after the prequels. And this was the hope that, it was going to make up for the prequels, which I will be an apologist for on some parts, but we're not getting into that.
Right.
So this is the sophomore year. This is the second year that they're doing Star Wars every year now. So it's not, your lineups are happening because of, your lineups aren't happening because people are buying their tickets online. You're not waiting in line to get a good seat because your seat's already assigned to you. Right. So that's
fair. And that's also worth mentioning that the AMC theater that I went to, the AMC theaters in the area have all upgraded their seating. So that also, not only does it upgrade the seating to be more comfortable and has assigned seating and reserved seating, it also cuts down the amount of seating in the theater as well. So the amount of tickets sold isn't the same as the amount of tickets sold last year. But the screening itself was actually not even sold out in it. So that's what kind of surprised me there. But yeah,
it was 3D.
Yeah. So we saw it in 3D, and the 3D, I don't think anything really stood out to me the way that, like in The Force Awakens, I saw that in 3D as well. In The Force Awakens at the beginning when Kylo stops the blaster bolt with the Force, seeing that in 3D is like really badass and really cool.
Yeah.
There was nothing like that in this movie that had that effect on me. That was like, oh, this is worth the price of 3D. And then I saw it again on Sunday. It was Sunday, in 2D, using my Movie Pass, that was the last day of my Movie Pass subscription that I bought it for a year. We'll talk more about that in the next episode, but, in 2D, that was a more of a packed screening, which was not that surprising to me, but yeah, and it was great. It looked good. Let's go ahead and dive into specifics about the movie. Like, what were your guys' overall thoughts on the movie coming out of it? What were your expectations going in, first of all? How did you feel about this? How did you feel about getting another Star Wars prequel? And how did the finished product affect your expectations? Or did it meet or exceed or, all the above? Your expectations. Tony, go nuts.
Oh man, I gotta get called on first. Great. Well, going in, I mean, one thing to remember, I'm 39 years old. I was born May 23rd, 1977. Star Wars premiered May 25th, 1977.
Oh,
wow.
I have quite literally grown up with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Why all these action figures are worth so much now are because little jerks like me tore them apart when we were kids. Okay? So when I first saw the trailers for Rogue One and I'm seeing the stuff that I grew up with, there's not anything new, not a new Lucasfilm designer putting their own spin on it. It's Star Destroyers. It's blockade runners. It's X-Wings with like full circle engines on them. It's Y-Wings. It's Rebel pilots, it's Rebel fleet troopers. I'm looking at this going, oh my God. It's like, that is my Chewie we're home moment right there. Okay. Not Force Awakens. That is, so I'm just like, I'm getting the opportunity to see a new tale that's set in the Star Wars that I know and that I've grown up with. And after the second trailer where they started giving away some of the story points, I backed away. I mean, like how you were complaining about all the internet, people doing speculation and trying to put stuff together. I backed so far away from that until I got ruined. I got spoiled on one plot point on Twitter the night it premiered. And so I just deleted my Twitter app and stayed clean until Saturday. I will admit, when I saw it, when it opened, when it started, I teared up a little. And then when you start seeing all these really familiar elements, but they're being done using new technology, but you're still seeing actual X-Wings parked on the ground on Yavin 4 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And then the storyline, you knew what was going to happen. I made all the jokes about they destroy the Death Star, they start the Rogue timeline, J.J. Abrams comes back, reboots with a new young cast. But
oh, that's awesome!
Alderaan survives,
Yeah.
Oh, that is perfect. I wish I would have. I wish I would have thought of that joke.
My fake Rogue One spoilers. So I guess karmically I deserve the actual Rogue One spoiler Thursday night, but no, it was, I mean, we know how it ends, but this is definitely one that it's the journey. How did they get there? And it didn't disappoint.
Nice.
So
how would you rank it against Force Awakens, first of all?
I need to give it a couple more viewings.
Okay.
I mean, I really do. I definitely rank it above the prequels and Jedi. I'm bouncing back and forth on whether or not I rank it above A New Hope.
Oh, interesting.
It is,
wow.
It is below Empire Strikes Back, but I also bounce around whether or not Force Awakens is above or below A New Hope because they're the same film. But
I'm glad you're the one that said it, and not me.
I'll take that one.
Right.
But yeah, and that's not a bad thing. But we won't go back.
Sure.
Moving forward, looking ahead to the film that set before 4 of them. But anyway, no, it's towards the top. I'm just still debating where I'm placing it.
Okay, nice. Okay.
It's did either of you guys do the whole when you left Rogue One, went home and watched A New Hope?
I wanted to Sunday, but I was also like I've finally become prepared to watch The Next Generation, so I started The Next Generation instead. So, but yeah.
I wanted to. My DVD player's broken right now.
Is it really?
Yeah, so I can't watch any of my
dude.
Blu-rays. Yeah, my PS3 crapped out finally, so I can't.
Oh, that sucks.
I got to get a new Blu-ray player. So,
dang.
But no, I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I went home. I've got the despecialized version of A New Hope, so it's the one I grew up with.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that after we're done recording.
Right.
Yeah, A New Hope is almost kind of slow.
Interesting.
After you watch Rogue One, and Rogue One didn't start out real quick.
No, it really didn't, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. So that's good. So they did their Ahmed best to do a good
I hate
prequel.
you. See, we didn't lay down the rules.
We didn't.
We didn't lay down the rules.
I threw it in there. I went through I did the trench run or something through. I don't know. Star Wars.
And start Star Wars crack here.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to set my phaser to
I hate you.
over to Tiny, and why don't you beam us your thoughts, your overall thoughts on Rogue One here in the holodeck of. Go. What did you think of Rogue One, Tiny?
Thank you, Jesus. Okay.
Stay on target.
Yeah,
Stay on target.
Really, Matt needs the Force.
I know.
So this may shock people, but I actually did not love Rogue One. I really wanted to. Putting it in, I guess filing it where my preference is. I would say it's probably the 4th best out of all 8 movies so far, in my book.
What's above it? The original trilogy and Force Awakens?
I would say for me,
I can't count.
For me, A New Hope is my favorite, followed by Empire, and then Force Awakens, and then I would say Rogue One, and then Return, and then the shitty prequels.
Gotcha.
So that's how I would rank it. So I mean, I did like it better than Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the original movies. So if that saves any face for me, I don't know if it does or not. But I mean, I think people resoundingly liked Rogue One, and I definitely liked it. But again, I Tony mentioned getting teared up at the beginning. That was me with Episode 7, Force Awakens. When the crawl started, I just like
I did that too.
Yeah, but this time, I'm glad they didn't have a crawl. That's a spoiler. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. We'll
actually
get into
been
that.
fairly common knowledge.
Has it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I'm glad they didn't use the crawl, and I think that was a good choice. But maybe that was why I didn't have quite the hook right at the beginning. But that's not a criticism. It's just my own personal reaction to it. I just thought it was kind of slow. And this is the 8th Star Wars movie we've gotten. Unless I'm mistaken, this is the first one that we have not had a lightsaber battle. And I really felt that. I mean, I really missed the lightsabers. I missed the Force. I missed all this. I missed the philosophy and the depth of the other movies and the other characters and storylines. I really missed it, and not that it felt detached from the Star Wars universe. It just didn't have the same anchor to it, I guess. It didn't have the same weight that I appreciate. But having said that, I loved a lot of these characters so much, and I thought it was a cool story. Like Tony said, it's about the journey. We know where we're going, and I think it was a fun journey, and I think they did a pretty good job with it. But it just didn't wrap me up and just like, there was obviously a ton of nostalgia there. But it just didn't grab me the way I was hoping.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's totally fair, and that's surprising too.
Yeah.
This will be fun to discuss with you guys.
Definitely.
As for me, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. let's see where to begin. So I love the idea of them filling in I guess not necessarily the gaps, but to some extent filling in the gaps of the entire saga with these standalone movies. And I like the idea of going back and finding this, the story of how they got the Death Star plans and everything like that. That is an intriguing concept, and it kind of plays on one of the things that I, not really one of my dislikes of the original trilogy, but more, my disappointment in that it's the franchise is Star Wars and the original trilogy is this rebellion, and it seems like there was a lot of emphasis on the mysticism and the Jedi and everything, and not enough of the galactic civil war that's going on. That was one of the things that I think when revisiting the original trilogy at some point, I was like, I really wish that there was more of the fight, more of the war of Star Wars. And this is what this movie delivered for me, was that. And to Tiny's point about him missing the Jedi and the mysticism and everything, on my second viewing, I kind of realized that that's kind of what was working for me for this movie a lot, because with the Jedi and all of the mythology and everything and throughout the saga, it's like it puts this franchise into more of a fantasy camp than anything. And Mike, our co-host, is on sabbatical, who you guys may be hearing from in a little bit here. You guys will. That's anyway. Anyway, he has stated many times that he's not a fan of fantasy, but he loves Star Wars, and Star Wars is basically fantasy. There's a princess, there's wizards, and there's magic and stuff. It's a fantasy series. Mm-hmm. And having this installment of it kind of step away from that, have this grounded story of this rebellion and the fighters in the rebellion, and have it be less about the mysticism and everything, all of that really combined to really work for me in a big way. And it became more of a science fiction movie than it was a science fiction fantasy movie, and that's something that I really liked. And not to say that there isn't Force stuff or anything like that in the movie. There is stuff there, and the way that they implemented it into the movie, I felt was really effective and really inventive and new for this concept, because this is a movie that exists after the Jedi have been massacred and everything. So you don't get the traditional lightsaber fight like Tiny mentioned, and you don't get, someone grappling with the fact that they're, oh, I have a Force sensitivity, so I'm a Jedi. Here, what's this lightsaber? Boom. Oh, cool. There's nothing like that, and I think that works in this movie's favor a lot. Having said that, there were some things that I took a little bit of issue with. Certain technological things that were done weren't necessarily to my liking, which we'll get more into that probably in the spoiler section of the episode. But that kind of didn't really work for me in a big way, and I agree that it was pretty slow at the beginning. It took a little bit to get going, and the more I've kind of thought about it, I feel like there was reports of extensive reshoots, which that happens on movies. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. But I kind of felt like there was a little bit, like, I felt like the story wasn't as tight as it could have been. Like, there were certain things throughout the movie that I felt like I didn't really get the character motivations in certain scenes. And also, and this is something that Mike will talk about in his mini review that we'll have later in the episode, but also, while I loved the characters, or I enjoyed watching these characters, since this is a standalone movie and there's no plans for any expansion of this storyline or anything, you get one movie with this set of characters, and this set of characters has this one movie to develop each one, and it's a big ensemble. I feel like while a lot of the characters, actually the core cast, all of them across the board, were really interesting and really, really well done and everything, I still feel like there wasn't enough to really make me think like I need to get, or like, oh, I didn't come away from it thinking like, oh, this one character was really great, even though one character I did say that character is really great. But it was like coming back out of Force Awakens, I thought, oh, Poe Dameron, he's my guy. I'm excited for, I love his character. I didn't really have that effect on really any of the characters in this movie, but the ones that did enjoy, or that's not to say that I didn't enjoy any of the characters. I did enjoy them in the moment. And overall, I think this was a very strong movie. And it came at a time where the standalone Star Wars movies were in question of whether or not they would be able to hold their own against the saga movies or tide the fan base between saga movies. And this, I think, was a very strong opening, or very strong first outing for standalone movies. And I've talked a lot.
Yeah.
So let's dive
Dare
in.
you speak so much on your own podcast?
Right. I did not, I just kept going and you guys didn't stop me. But so having said all that, I enjoyed the movie quite a bit, and I can't wait to get into the finer details of it. So let's talk characters, really. Do you guys want to go with character discussions first?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, cool, because I did not make any notes for this podcast. So, yeah, as I said, the characters didn't really do much for me. There was one character in particular that I was freaking all about, and ironically, it was the kind of Force sensitive character played by Donnie Yen. And that's another thing. I couldn't remember any of the characters' names.
Yeah, none of them stood out to me, really.
Yeah, but his was, I'm going to butcher this, it's a Chirrut Imwa.
Actually, I think you almost nailed it.
Oh, nice. Awesome. So what did you guys think of him? He's the blind, Tony, what is it called? The Keepers of the...
The Keepers of the Wills.
There we go.
Which is fun because... Once again, going deep Star Wars geek, the original script was the Journal of the Wills,
The
WHILLS.
original trilogy.
The original Star Wars script was kind of the sub title for it.
Hence the long time ago.
Yeah, bringing the concept of the Wills and the Guardians of the Wills who guarded these Kyber crystals. I can't believe I remember that. They're on, was it Jeddah?
Jeddah, yeah.
Yeah. Which in no way sounds like Jedi.
Right. That wasn't subtle.
Well, did you guys see, I think it was on that, the kind of downed statue
Oh, yeah.
in sand.
Yeah.
That was, I kind of missed it on my second viewing. But yeah, I noticed at the first viewing, I just think that that's really good detail. Really good detail for that.
But to stay on target, to bring it back. Yeah, no, he was, and I mean, he had some great lines.
Yeah.
So great.
They put the sack over his head. I'm blind.
Oh yeah, that was great. And the action beats with him, he has a couple really great and stupendous sequences that he's displays his action. He was in the Ip Man movies.
Yeah.
Of
which he's amazing in those.
Right. And him and the other guy, his partner guy, what I noticed on my second viewing was that the gun that he has, it felt like that wasn't a weapon that I feel like we've really gotten to see that much in the Star Wars movies, at least that I can remember. It's like a machine gun, and the rapid fire of the bolts is just I was all about that character and his badassness. I really like that.
Yeah.
Me too. I think the two Asian characters played by Donnie Yen and Wen Zhang, I thought those were my two favorite characters.
Yeah.
And they were kind of ancillary, which was interesting. I feel like, even though this is not one of the saga movies, I feel like these characters filled a lot of the similar tropes from past Star Wars movies. And what's funny is I think these two characters were the most like C-3PO and R2-D2, except they spoke English the whole time.
Sure, yeah.
Because I think they had really funny rapport. Baze was the guy with the machine gun. He was kind of like a smart ass and kind of like quirky, like R2 is. And the other guy, also kind of smart alecky, but he was a little more proper, I guess you could say. I don't know. That's kind of the feel I got with them. That's kind of the dynamic they had. They played off each other that way. And incidentally enough, some of the other characters that you would think would be, I don't know if we want to get to those other characters or not, but the droid in this movie felt like a human character more than the droids in the past movies.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of a fun turn of events. But yeah, they were my favorite characters. And they're awesome.
Yeah, those two characters. Had this been a saga movie, like if this was a saga movie, those were like the only two characters that I feel like, if there was talk of like a spin-off, like if this was a saga movie, if they were in the original trilogy, if all the characters, let's say Rogue One was an original trilogy movie, I feel like those are the only two characters in this movie that would be talked about, like, oh, let's get them get them an anthology movie.
Right.
And I think that's both to their credit and to the detriment of the overall writing of the movie for me. But Tony, what'd you think of them?
And like you said, most of the characters, while they did a good job fleshing them out as well as they could in the time the movie allowed, I mean, I left that second viewing and I still need IMDb to remember character names.
Yeah.
The only one that really stuck out, because I am a Alan Tudyk fanboy, was K2SO.
Yeah.
And mainly because he was also such a sarcastic, wise ass. And
right.
He's if R2D2 could talk, it's almost
true. Yeah.
Personally, I think
part of me kind of wants to see him play kickball with BB-8, but anyway.
That's awesome.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I just thought it was really brave of them to have a character that is clearly like the love child of C-3PO and Chappie, though.
Even though I did find it very amusing that a character voiced by Alan Tudyk was flying a cargo ship with a front-facing cargo bay door that people were entering and exiting and out of. Probably reading a bit too much into that. Yeah. Very, very Firefly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Friend of the show, Kate Chaplin, she posted on Facebook she shared an image that was just a drawing of K2SO playing with the two toys, saying like, "Oh, curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal!" Like,
curse your sudden but inevitable mashup.
Yeah, there you go, mashup.
Yes,
yeah,
that's it.
That was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, and while we're talking about K2SO, I first of all, I did not piece it together that it was Alan Tudyk until the end credits. I was like, that was kind of like oh wow, that's awesome.
Me too.
Yeah, and I kind of, while I think that he was great for 80% of the movie, 80 to 85% of the movie, there were like some moments where I felt like he was just a little too dry. But that was better on repeat on the second viewing. But like there's like one scene in particular where I don't know if I really want to give it away, but it's just like he asks Cassian if he wants to know the odds of a certain thing, and then like he's just the way that K2SO says like it's high. It's really high. It's just the way that that's handled is just so beautiful, and it's like the best like comedic beat of the movie for me, probably. Yeah, so I'm glad that they found a good balance for the droid in the movie, and it wasn't like an overbearing thing. It wasn't like we got the super cute, adorable BB-8, and we've had the kind of really annoying and a little bit frustrating by my account R2D2 and C-3PO. But no, this is a good balance to that. Like, this is a likable character who is funny and memorable.
Agreed.
Yeah. And we're kind of running down the list here, really, but Felicity Jones and Diego Luna as Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor. This is where I had a little bit of trouble in the movie. I feel like there was, in terms of Jyn Erso's backstory, I feel like there was a lot more to be desired. I kind of found myself when, well, I mean, I guess I'm kind of second guessing myself if we should save that for spoilers or not, but I found myself when she's entered into the overall plot line or the main plot of the movie by the rebellion or the Rebel Alliance, I kind of felt like there was a disconnect between what we'd seen previous to that and how we got to that moment. I kind of felt like, what has she been doing all these, like, this whole time? And how does it connect with what's going on here? And then that's kind of the same way with Cassian's character, because we see him do something early on in the movie, and I'm kind of like, it puts the Rebel Alliance in a specific light, which I appreciated. And I'm suddenly realizing we should save this for spoilers, but we'll talk about it more in detail in spoilers. But I kind of felt like there was, maybe this is a proof of the reshoots being more of an issue than let on. But I kind of feel like there was some story beat elements that were missing in the early moments, and I think that's what contributed to being the first 30 to 45 minutes being kind of slow and meandering. Did either of you guys get that impression?
Well, I didn't think too much about the reshoots being a cause of it.
That's just an estimation.
Yeah,
and
it very well could be.
Yeah.
You saw evidence of a lot of that just by things that were shown in the trailers not being in the film. But which I was going to touch on that on spoilers. I'm not sure if you guys are thinking about that or not. But
the trailer stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
we can talk about it in spoilers.
Yeah, it's that first 30 to 40 minutes, and they jumped around so much.
Yeah.
Planets. I actually wrote this 7 planets, not counting the Death Star, that they had in this film.
Wow.
I'm not sure if you guys have ever noticed, they normally have 3 distinct environments in Star Wars films. They were on 7 different locations. That's part of why, if you saw my tweet talking about making notes in a dark theater is hard, I can't even read my own handwriting. That's because I was trying to write down the planet names, but I don't have them. I can't read my own handwriting.
And only 2 of them were familiar.
Yeah,
the Death Star and you have it 4.
Yeah. Well, remember that 7 doesn't count the Death Star.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, geez, there you
So
go.
it's 7 plus the Death Star.
There's one other one that they didn't name in the movie that we'll talk about in spoilers, but that's also kind of familiar too.
It's one of the 7, but yeah.
Yep. So yeah, let's go through a couple more of the characters really, and then we can just kind of dive into spoilers after that, because it's kind of hard to talk around this.
I would like to point out that in none of these characters were there any damn Bothans. Stop saying Stop bringing up the Bothans stealing the Death Star plans. That was the second Death Star.
I think I made that mistake in one of the Star Wars episodes we did, and then like I've been kicking myself mentally over that, because that's the 6th movie that it is, but yeah.
I can mark that off my notes now.
Okay, so real quickly, Riz Ahmed and Mads Mikkelsen. Riz Ahmed, we here at the Obsessive Viewer are fans of him, and Mads Mikkelsen, I personally enjoy quite a bit. How did you guys feel they were handled in the movie, and how did you feel they performed?
Tiny.
Well, Riz Ahmed, I feel like was not used very well. I feel like his character was just. I'm going to say this about all the characters. I feel like pretty much every character in this movie was like a placeholder. I don't know. It felt like they developed a lot of them relatively well, but it just felt like, these are just going to be so compartmentalized characters that it's going to be hard for you to latch on to them. And I feel like Riz Ahmed's character, Bodhi, is that his name? Yeah, Bodhi.
Right.
I feel like he was just kind of there. I mean, he was just. I don't feel like he contributed a ton as far as like being a member of the team. I mean, obviously he played a role, and then he had vital information and this and that. But I don't know what his defining characteristic is. So
the poor guy was being drug along. When the group first meets him, his brain is messed up from that creature that Saul used on him to find out the truth. And then he starts getting drug along, and then when they grab the K2SO does the whole now you're a rebel sort of thing. And he started doing more as the film went on, but he was just kind of. He stumbled into it.
Right.
That's kind of the feeling I got from Bodhi is like, I thought I was trying to help. I thought I was delivering a message, and I'm out, and now I'm in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
I can kind of see that too, for sure. He kind of felt a little bit like kind of like the droid of the movie. I mean, he's in the mix of what's going on, but he's more of a passive participant in it, but he's an integral part of it, much like the droids in the original trilogy were. I think that Riz Ahmed did a fine job. I really like him as an actor, but I agree, and that is kind of a stumbling point for the whole movie, is that a lot of the characters didn't have that kind of feel to it, and I kind of wonder if that's because this this is truly the only movie in the franchise that is its own contained thing. It's not built to have it to build upon each other. Like every movie at this point has been an episodic serial movie that is building on what's come before and building toward what's coming after. This is the one it's kind of filling in a gap in the story. And I kind of think that maybe that could contribute to the characters not being that well realized, or not having that impression of being well realized on our end.
Yeah, and then Mads Mikkelsen, I love him. He is such a great character actor. He's very he's a bit chameleon-like. I think he's really impressive as an actor. But again, I think his character kind of. I really love his role in the story. I think it's a cool role. I think he's so integral to he's like the linchpin of this entire story. So obviously he's a big deal, and I think it's cool the way his character was involved. But again, I think a lot of he's the linchpin of the story, but it feels so many times throughout the movie like he's really just there to influence the character of Jin. And it's like he's just backstory for her now. It's kind of what it feels like throughout a lot of the movie. And again, I think he could have been used to better effect. I loved the opening scene though. Yeah. Where he's him and his family. It just looked, the cinematography was astounding, and that was just a really cool scene. Yeah. I wanted to throw that out there. I don't know why.
Yeah. Let's see. Tony, do you have any on those, or?
I'm not much of a character person, like I said, very superficial. So
Gotcha.
I'm too busy looking at their costumes.
Okay, then we'll round out the discussion of the cast real quick with Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera and Ben Mendelsohn as Orson Krennic. What do you guys think of their inclusion in the movie? I thought Forrest Whitaker was he was the most kind of out there character. He kind of had some interesting affectations on his voice and his performance and everything. And I understand that he is a character in Star Wars Rebels.
No, Clone Wars.
Clone Wars.
Then they're going to bring him into Rebels. And
there we go.
I haven't seen Clone Wars, so that's just over my head.
Gotcha. Okay. And I think that it worked well in the context of this entire franchise, because he kind of I got like shades of like General Grievous off of him, just in terms of just some of the things about his character, not specific character things, but just kind of had the same kind of thing. It kind of felt like a partially mechanized creature, essentially, like a combination of organic and machine character. And I kind of like that it kind of I can make that connection, and I'm glad that in Rogue One that's one of the only like prequel connections I could make. And then Ben Mendelsohn I thought was really great. Like that guy is just he's great at playing a menacing character, and I just feel like, but I feel like that character alone, if we didn't have the backstory of the dark side and the Empire and everything, like that character by himself would be a little flimsy. Like it's just kind of more of a like it's like Disney and Lucasfilm were like, okay, let's do the Marvel Studios treatment of our villain in this movie. Kind of like let's make a villain, let's get a really talented actor for it, and let's just let them do their thing there, and not really worry about everything.
But they didn't mess with Mickelson's eyes.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They didn't. That was shocking.
Right. So let's just kind of stop beating around the bush and let's go into spoilers for this movie.
Let's be honest. When you're talking about a Star Wars film, there's so much of it that could be considered spoilers by people.
Absolutely.
Right.
Let's go into spoilers. But before we do that, there's a couple things that I want to kind of bring up, and then we can kind of expound upon them in our spoiler talk. So first of all, in the podcast, or in the Facebook group page for the podcast, which can be found at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer. It's the pinned post at the top of the page. I posted a question on the Facebook group asking what everyone thought of Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So I'll go ahead and kind of go through some of the responses we got. First of all, Brandon Yoder from Billy and Brandon Watch Movies. He said, it's a good movie. I liked it, but at times it falls into the Ghostbusters trap of it isn't a Star Wars movie 1 second and look at these cool Star Wars references the next. Even just the music. They're trying to make it sound like it isn't Star Wars music. Then they drop in a very recognizable song. Then he went on to say, honestly, the story is more engaging than The Force Awakens, and it looks beautiful. Just not quite as fun. It's better than the last handful of Marvel movies. It certainly has a more original plot than anything Disney has done in a long time. Which is a little bit incendiary, I guess, just a tad. Like, it's a little bit shots fired over there.
I'd like to touch on one of the things you mentioned there was the score.
Yeah,
the score was very, and I always slaughter the guy's name. It's Michael
Giacchino.
Mm-hmm. I love his work on, I listen to the Star Trek Into Darkness, and Star Trek Beyond soundtracks every day while I'm writing documentation for work. And I can tell, mainly because I listen to him all the time, definite themes he has to those, and they're very enjoyable, they're very distinctive. And this just felt generic. This felt, I saw somebody say it's almost like you're watching a fan film, and people are using the license, the free music archive sort of, let's find music that can almost fit the scene. And it occasionally would pull in themes. But overall the score, and because I was really listening to it on my second viewing, and it faded into the background, and it was, Williams' stuff was very much a character in the film. His music in other films have very much been a character in the film. Then this one, no. I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, Tiny.
I agree. I feel like he was trying to tiptoe around John Williams.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
Reference him without stealing from him, which is
Right.
impossible. No offense to John Williams, he's a legend, but he's a little generic sometimes. Not generic, but he kind of
steals from himself.
Right. Thank you. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Again, not a slight on him. He's a legend, but he's kind of a derivative composer that way, and it felt like that's what Michael Giacchino was trying to do.
I agree, and that it pains me to say that because Michael Giacchino, man, it's his work. It feels like he taps into my emotions in his music in such a profound way for me. Like he did the music for Lost, and there are tracks in the Lost soundtracks and everything that it's like I'm transport, it brings a tear to my eye every time I hear it. And he's responsible for so many really incredible moving scores. Even the music, as you said, Tony, the Star Trek movies. He also did Super 8, which has just really beautiful themes in it.
Yeah.
And that, I agree, was definitely missing from this movie.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Very good.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder, because wasn't he pulled into the project rather late? It seems to me like his announcement as a composer seemed to be rather late into it. So I'm wondering if he just couldn't give it all that he wanted to.
I would almost guarantee that would be. I have no evidence to that, but that is a much better reasoning than thinking that he was tiptoeing around John Williams, or that he
just dropped the
half-assed it. Yeah, because he's not a composer that I would think would drop the ball on a project. Because, like I said, so much of his work has just really been moving in a very specific way.
And obviously, he gave Disney and Edwards what they wanted for the film, but
Yep. And then going on to the Facebook group discussions and everything. Once again, and by the way, I like us having a dialogue in between each one. So if you guys have any thoughts on this, go ahead and
because this isn't long enough,
Right. Let's see. Okay, well, this one's a little bit spoilery, so I'll save that for later. A frequent guest of the show, Robert Feckus, said, "I loved the film, but I will say I was torn on the score." I almost wish they would have dedicated the film to an original score rather than rework the classics. I was taken out of the film by picking out the bits from the original score. I guess the big question everyone is asking, though, is if it was better than The Force Awakens. And after seeing it twice now, I say The Force Awakens is my favorite of the two. I just love the Force mythology and the mystery of Snoke and Rey, which we didn't really. I can kind of save that for spoiler, so I won't say that either. But then this one commenter, Tony Troxell, said it's no Star Trek Into Darkness, which I loved, because we had just had a conversation on Twitter about the merits of Star Trek Into Darkness. And then by the way, I was my reply to that, I just want to mention that I had seen the movie with Fecus and a bunch of people. And after the movie, I turned to him, and the first thing I said, which, Tiny, you can attest to this, I like to kind of have something keyed up for after the movie to alienate the people that I go with to see.
It's a superpower.
Right, it is. So I turned to Fecus and I said, just saying so much in this movie could have been solved with the Star Trek transporter. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think I'll be seeing any movies with Fecus anymore. But so those are the Facebook comments, and we're going to jump into spoilers, and we'll get to listener Andy's comment as well after we go to spoilers. But first, I want to surprise you guys, even though I said it before, but we have a short mini review from Mike White, who is our co-host, is on sabbatical from the podcast, that I'll play now. It's the return of his Mike's Pine Tree Perfume segment that we haven't had for months and months and months. But here is Mike, who is potentially one of the biggest Star Wars fans I know, him talking about Rogue One. And then after we get back, we'll go into spoilers.
Listen up, this'll only take a second.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Tiny. It's Mike. I'm super tired. I'm driving home, and I just got out of the movie.
One a little heavy on the Pine Tree Perfume there, kid.
Sir, it's a taxi cab air freshener.
Great, you've pinpointed it. Step 2 is washing it off.
Hey, obsessive viewer listeners, and Matt and Tiny. This is Mike, and I'm back with another Mike's Pine Tree Perfume, or whatever we called it, which now I think has become part of the title, is me adding or whatever we call it at the end. So here I am. I'm back for another one. This is Sunday night. It's 9:51 Evansville time, and I just got finished watching Rogue One for a second time. I watched it at 7:30 on opening night, and I just had to see it again because I had a few buddies who hadn't seen it yet. I love this movie so much. I think there's so much to say. Surely you guys in your review did a more in-depth analysis than I could do, but I'll point out a few things that I thought were significant. And, of course, the ultimate question at the end is, where does it rank? So, to get the stuff I didn't necessarily like out of the way, and I'm sure Matt might have talked about this a little bit, the interesting CGI choices that they made are wanting, I suppose. They're cool moments, the things that they did with the CGI, but it's just not perfected. And I think to anybody who is more than just a passing fan of movies, I think they kind of would be able to make the cheat in the CGI moments. Also, Forrest Whitaker, I thought, was a little hammy in his role, almost like he was confused about what movie he was in. Other than that, I think this was my favorite movie of the year. It was amazing. The best compliment I think I can pay to Rogue One. Did I say The Force Awakens at the beginning of this thing? Maybe I did. I just got done seeing Rogue One to correct. Do I have to start over? No, I'm just going to keep going. Whatever. I saw Rogue One. We were talking about Force Awakens as we got out, so that might be that slip. So anyway, the scope of the movie was huge. I mean, I think, the size and the devastation of the Death Star was bigger than it ever has been before. There are specific cameos that I won't spoil, but make certain characters richer and deeper and scarier perhaps than they ever have before. And I also love just the scope of the tale that they're trying to tell, which is interesting considering we kind of know how this thing ends. I loved seeing how they would tie the events of this into the beginning of Star Wars Episode 4, and because I wondered how long before they stole the plans of the Death Star to give to the Tantive 4, Leia on the Tantive 4 at the beginning of A New Hope, and I kind of liked seeing that unfold. I really thought the cast overall was great. Felicity Jones and Diego Luna, I think, are fantastic. And I can't wait to see this again. I think that it really enhances. I'm all over the place. Sorry about that. What this movie does, I think, best, the highest compliment I can pay to it, is that it enhances the experience of A New Hope. I think some questions are answered, some things are clarified, and you really just get a more full saga at the end of this one. I can't. It's too early to decide where I would rank this movie among the, I guess, 8 movies now. I think it's easier to compare to The Force Awakens, and I think that I just have a bias because this is a side story, but I think I give a slight edge to Force Awakens. I think the scope of the movie Rogue One and the plot of Rogue One is arguably better, maybe objectively better. It's just much more grandiose. The filmmaking, I think, is less adherent to member-berry moments, I think, despite the fact that there are several. I think it's less about the legacy aspects and more about telling a really fantastic war movie. The reason I give The Force Awakens the edge, I think, is because the characters are simply iconic. Rey and Finn and Poe and Kylo are now already, a year after the release of the movie, iconic characters. And they're interesting and they're funny and they're deep characters. And I can't wait to continue their story. As much as I loved the cast and the group that made up Rogue One, the group, not the film, but the group Rogue One, as much as I love them, aside from a few interesting character traits, there's nothing that really made me want to continue to watch more stories about Jyn or more stories about Captain Cassian. And so, it's okay that we only get one of them because they just didn't pop as iconic characters. People are saying this is the movie to watch if you're not necessarily a Star Wars fan, and I couldn't agree more. A couple of my friends have already called this their favorite Star Wars movie, and I would stop just short of calling it that. But it enhances the original trilogy. It makes the prequel trilogy that much more forgettable, regrettable even. And I've seen it twice now, and I can't wait to see it again. Anyway, good to talk to you guys. Can't wait to see what Matt and Tiny think. And if you want to hit me back and let me know what you guys think, you can always find me on Twitter at @IamMikeWhite. Good to talk to you guys. See you.
Rebellions are built on hope. They've no idea we're coming.
Take hold of this moment. The Force is strong. Make 10 men feel like 100.
We'll take the next chance. And the next. You're rebels, aren't you?
Save the rebellion! Save the dream!
All right, and we're here with spoilers for Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And thank you, Mike, for giving your time to do that. You can follow him on Twitter at I am Mike White and listen to him in about 100 episodes worth of this podcast back in the early days.
It'd be nice if you use that Twitter account.
I know it's locked. It's interesting. He has a locked account. I haven't asked him if he wants to, make it public for listeners, but I don't know. I don't know. I should really ask him that. But anyway, to kind of circle back again to the Facebook group, Andy Wolf. I don't know if he wanted me to say his full name. Listener Andy, who we met at PopCon last year, he said when they showed how the last planet was protected, I was sort of hoping Akbar's big idea was changing one of the ships into a giant vacuum.
That's great.
Right. Of course, poking a hole in the shield with a giant ship was okay. Would have been better with a big popping sound, which I really appreciated that. It's worth noting that wasn't actually Admiral Akbar, was it?
No, it wasn't.
It was not.
Right. But yeah, that I thought that was hilarious. So what did you guys think of the big... Well, there's a lot of different set pieces in this movie. And as you said, Tony, there's several different planets that are visited. And so now we're free with spoilers. And I just want to say the one thing that I should have said in the non-spoiler review, I will go out on a limb here and say that I think that Rogue One was perhaps the most visually striking Star Wars movie that I've seen. And I say that because in The Force Awakens, there was that one really incredible shot where the Resistance. There we go. Thank you. The Resistance fighters are in their X-Wings and they're flying over the lake. And it's just like the beauty of that shot is just so striking. And I had a similar reaction to most of the big set pieces and the big visual just shots in this movie. Visual shots, amazing. In this movie, as I did with that specific shot in The Force Awakens. That's something that I really liked. So what did you guys think of the visuals in this movie? Tarkin notwithstanding, we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah. I didn't have that reaction.
Really? Interesting.
I wish I had. Again, that opening scene that I mentioned earlier on Random Planet Number 1, that was just gorgeous. I don't know what it was. Maybe the bleakness of it and how gray it was. I just appreciated that visually, and the beach planet where the conclusion or the climax takes place, really beautiful. And I thought it was cool, but I'm not sure there were any scenes that struck me like the X-Wings on the lake.
Really?
Yeah.
Not even like the Star Destroyer hovering over the place on Jeddah?
No.
Not quite. Not for me.
Really? Or
Star Destroyers annoyed me.
Oh, really?
Those were as bright a white as Tom Cruise's smile. Those Star Destroyers should not be that stark, gleaming white.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I can meet you there. Yeah.
And that every time I saw those Star Destroyers, it took me out.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the final battle over what was began with an S.
Scarif.
Scarif.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That final battle over Scarif, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
The X-Wings, the Y-Wings, for some reason the Rebel transports, I'm not sure why they would bring the Rebel transports into a battle, but there you go. And then stark white Star Destroyers.
Sure.
But that final battle, it was not a mess like Return of the Jedi was, or the battle over Coruscant on the beginning of Episode 3. It looked like they actually more plotted out, not quite beautifully choreographed or anything like that, but just not a huge mess. And go ahead delving into some of the Easter eggs and cameos. Have either of you guys watched Star Wars Rebels?
No.
No, but it's funny because the way that this movie factors into the whole franchise, it fills in some gaps in the franchise proper. It kind of makes me excited to maybe go into like see the Star Wars Rebels show or read the novels that are connected to the that are now canon essentially.
Yeah.
It makes me kind of curious about that. I'm not as much of a fan of the franchise as a whole yet to where I can pull the trigger on that, but I'm kind of curious.
But the Ghost, the big ship, their version of like the Millennium Falcon from Rebels, I remembered seeing it. I thought I saw it on the landing pad at Yavin 4 at the very beginning. Then I thought I'd seen it at least one time during the battle. And then I saw, of course, you start digging around the Easter egg sites. You find a screen capture going, yeah, see, here's the back of the ship. And then I'm actually paying attention to the battle, and I think you see it like 5 times.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Like flying across behind the Mon Calamari, which makes me want to bread them and
yeah, right.
Yeah,
you know, flying behind them and just flying down the corner of the screen. And
wow,
it's just like, damn. I guess if you're going to build the ship model, you want to use it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Doesn't matter if it's CG or actual plastic, you want to use it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You know, it's funny. I didn't have a problem with the Star Destroyers. I thought that the I don't know the technique that they used to create. I don't know if they used actual models or CGI or a mixture of both, but I thought they looked beautiful. And just like the destruction of it when they put them together and then they use that. I thought that was just beautiful.
That was really
how
cool.
they use the hammerhead to push the
yes.
one.
That was really cool. I love
cool.
I love the sloppiness of it because nothing about that battle was planned. It was just drop of the hat and start like, let's just push the ship into the other one and knock out the gate while we're at it. You know, I thought that was great. I liked that a lot.
But
absolutely.
Also showed a bit of the sacrifice they're willing to make because if you notice, that Corvette is still embedded in the Star Destroyer as it goes down into the shield.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So it didn't just push and pull away.
Right.
It bam.
Right. Speaking of sacrifice, everybody in this fucking movie died.
Oh God.
Everybody died. Look at the top the top 9 billed actors all died. I mean, and everybody's talking about this.
I wasn't going to bring up the Rogue One. Everybody died.
Right.
I mean, you have to be that emphatic because everybody dies. But I mean, I have mixed feelings on it, but I think it makes sense.
Is that not what everyone was expecting though?
No,
because I went in
expecting
thinking like I know people were saying like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if just the end of the movie was like Vader just fucking annihilating every single character that we followed this whole movie?
Yeah,
and I thought that would have been kind of cool.
He just annihilated Rebel fleet troopers,
right?
Yeah,
which we will talk about that.
We'll go back, but
will henceforth be referred to as the scene.
Right.
Because yes, I agree.
Oh yeah. But I went in expecting, I knew that this was going to be a one-off standalone movie. I knew that this likely wasn't going to have a sequel or anything, to fill in to it or anything. Cause I mean, they have the main saga. They already have planned, the Han Solo movie next. There's not like going to be a Rogue One 2 or Rogue 2,
right.
Or anything. So I was like, okay, well, and none of these characters have any importance in the greater saga or anything. Of course they're gonna die, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing them get killed.
See, I was really looking forward to the Star Wars Ultimate Edition where they CGI implanted them in like the cantina,
right?
And stuff like that. Just throughout, it's like you on Hoth and Empire Strikes Back, you see one or two of them in the hangar bay, stuff like that.
And they do the special edition of The Force Awakens, and they're all like hanging out at Maz Kanata's place.
Hey, I'm Hayden Christensen. No, I mean, I get what you're saying, and that's like I don't necessarily have a problem with it.
Sure.
I just think it would have been cool if in a couple years when we get episode 9, we could have gotten like maybe
call back to it.
Jin and Cassian could have made babies, and we get their grandchildren or something in episode 9, just as a one-off thing where they bump into these characters somewhere in episode 9. Not necessary, and I realize it's not a big deal, but I just think it would have been cool.
I have already seen the fanboys going on Cassian and Jin. You don't see a body, man. That's a rule. You got to see a body.
Oh, come on.
I'm just like, the Death Star doesn't leave a body.
Right.
This isn't like Terminator 2 where everything melts away and then the skeleton explodes.
Yeah.
There's nothing left.
They thought Alderaan was an asteroid field.
Exactly.
I mean, there you go.
Yeah. The to kind of leapfrog off that, also, I am so happy. Another reason why I like this movie so much is it doesn't leave these big questions over.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so glad that it didn't factor into any of the questions in The Force Awakens. Like, Jyn Erso is not the mother of Rey in The Force Awakens. There's nothing like that in this movie.
Yeah.
It is all in service to really the lead up to A New Hope in the franchise proper, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really appreciated about this movie because, as we mentioned before, I had such a problem with the lead up to The Force Awakens and all the conjecture and speculation. I'm so glad there's none of that with this movie because this is all self-contained.
That's true. I guess I have to give him credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
Having heard you say that or describe it that way, I guess I do. I should give him credit for having it serve, having this movie really serve the opening of A New Hope.
Yeah.
And that's a credit to the filmmakers, I guess.
Yeah. But then also if they had more well-drawn characters in the movie, then maybe that could be more inviting to
True.
that, and that could also be a fault of that.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I do have in my notes is I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me, has joined I am a leaf on the wind, watch how I soar, in phrases that make me go, too soon.
Oh, yeah.
Too soon, no.
Sure. Yeah, that whole sequence was freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And again, that also goes to him being Donnie Yen's character being kind of that pairing being kind of the only like fully fleshed out characters for me, for my personal taste.
Yeah.
So it was more strong there, and I love that we have that. Like it's a new like mantra in the Star Wars canon. Yeah, it just sucks that they all died. With it. But the end like battle, the whole big set piece at the end, we kind of circled around a little bit, but I kind of want to talk a little bit more about it. Yeah. It does what Star Wars movies seem to do all the time. They have different like actions running concurrent to each other. So we had, Jyn, Cassian, and K2SO. There we go. Going for the plans. We had the rebels on the beach fighting. We had the space fight and everything. Like all of those working in conjunction with one another. I thought it was more Star Wars for me than it kind of had the spirit of Star Wars to it that I really appreciated. Me not even being that big of a Star Wars fan, but yeah, I thought that was really cool.
What do you know about the spirit of Star Wars, man? You're not even a geek.
It's not even for you, man.
I was gonna try to shoehorn in a Star Trek reference, but I can't. That's ridiculous.
Thank you.
Anyway, Tony, what were you gonna say?
I agree. I really enjoyed the climax of the movie. I think a lot of movies, Star Wars included, will attempt to juggle multiple things like that at once, things happening at the same time, and they drop the ball. But this movie, they did not. I love the way it all hooked together. You had ground forces, you had dogfighting, you had the big huge battle up above the planet. Mm-hmm. I think it all tied together really well, and it feels like a lot of the time you have this ridiculous chain of events that leads to the victory, if you will, and it's like it's so impossible that it's really cool and it looks good, but it's just not. I mean, obviously you're dealing with science fiction here. No one has a lightsaber in real life, but I'm saying it feels like a more realistic conclusion of events, I guess, or confluence of events. The Mustang ship driving the other ship. It's sloppy. Like, and then, like Tony mentioned, a bunch of people had to die and sacrifice themselves for that. And I respect the fact that all these characters died because you're talking about unplanned missions and gathering intelligence, and that's a really dangerous job. And so it makes sense that everybody perished, and in order to win or achieve victory, so many people had to die and so many things had to go wrong.
Oh, just like the 2 or 3 pilots in Blue Squadron that hit that shield like bugs on a windshield when it went back up. You know, it's like,
and there's always a little bit of that, but there was a ton of it in this movie. And like, again, I think it makes sense. And
Absolutely.
It was a good choice.
oh, at the very end, as they're all starting to retreat, and Vader's Star Destroyer just comes right in, and you see like a half dozen ships crash right into it.
Yes,
as they're going into hyperspace.
That was a really cool scene.
Very cool. Did you guys catch this? I didn't. I obviously didn't catch it in the moment because I don't know my Star Wars lore that well. But I read about it afterwards that one of the is it Red Squadron guys, like one of them crashes and dies, and that's like that one is the opening that Luke will get. Red 5,
yeah.
When I saw Red 5, and it's like this young guy, he's just taken out by a TIE fighter. It's like, well, guess that's how Luke got that call sign.
Right.
Obviously, he didn't get that fighter.
Yeah. But I thought that was pretty cool after the fact because I didn't catch it in the moment.
Agreed.
No, but delving a little bit into the CG aspect.
Yes, let's talk about that.
The inclusion of Red Leader and Gold Leader, when they came up, that's something else that caused the oh my god, because they took these unused elements from A New Hope that they found in the archive, cleaned them back up, put them in to the new film, and it's just like, and they're using the dialogue that they used from the Death Star run in A New Hope, and I just thought that was really cool that they were able to tie in that way.
Right.
Other stuff, not as big a fan of.
Yeah. When the Rebel pilots, when that came up, I couldn't distinguish it from like being CGI or anything like that. And the only reason why I even knew that it was something was next to me, Fecus and his brother kind of like they like kind of gasped a little bit and thought like, that's so cool. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, guys. But yeah, that was
Star
really
Wars
cool.
fan.
Right. And then I'll say that was good. And then the Leia thing at the end was great because it was brief. It didn't have too much of an uncanny valley for me. She only said one word. That was cool.
She could have kept her back to the camera the entire time.
I think
they could
so
have just
too.
used the one word.
Yeah. But Tarkin, I mean, come on.
You know, I'm going to admit, when I first saw him, I thought the weird sheen might have been because they had an actor in a silicone gel appliance as opposed to foam latex.
Yeah.
Then I really started looking, and the lips aren't quite matching up right, and he's got that dead look in the eyes, and it's like, nope, that's the corpse of Peter Cushing.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that people are calling it out for that, because, I mean, first of all, the technology is not there to have photoreal, like perfect representation of an actor's presence on screen. The technology is just not there yet.
It's better than it was in Tron Legacy. You'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's still.
Yeah. But like when Civil War came out and we had that segment where Stark is going through that little hologram of his past and it's presented to us as like, oh, this is a young Robert Downey Jr. Like, people were applauding that, thinking like, oh, that looks so realistic and so cool. That was such a cool moment. And I'm just in there like, yeah, but it was uncanny valley. Like, it took me out. I'm so glad that it was actually a thing. But like here, it's like they did that, and like I can see them getting away with it, like just in passing, just kind of doing like kind of a glance here and there. But like he has actual dialogue with Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah.
And he has an arc through the movie. And that is troublesome to me because visually it doesn't look as photorealistic as it should in context with the rest of the movie. So you see him, it looks like he's a video game cutscene, but maybe a little bit crisper than that. And you have those dead vacant stare. It kind of seems like when he is acting opposite Ben Mendelsohn, it's like I feel like he should be emoting more. There should be more of a reaction, but there's like shots where it's just a shot of his face, and I'm just like, what is he doing? Like, why is Peter Cushing going to haunt my dreams for the rest of my life? It's like, something was off. I wish that they would have either kept it low key and in passing, or if they would have just recast the role. Because I just don't think it worked for me, and it was a little too uncanny valley. And so, yeah. Go ahead, you guys talk. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I know they had the actor that they used to play younger Tarkin at the end of episode 3.
Yeah.
And they brought in, Jimmy Smits to play Bail Organa. They brought in, and I shut my phone down. I can't check IMDb. The actress who did the scenes that were cut of Mon Mothma. They brought them in. Why couldn't they bring? I mean, I don't know. I haven't checked his IMDb. He might no longer be with us. I don't know. But why couldn't they bring someone like that in that's fairly gaunt like Cushing and, do some of the makeup like the silicone gel I thought it might have been or some foam latex or something. It's not that hard. It's probably cheaper than doing a full CGI Cushing. But why couldn't they do that? It's just because they could doesn't mean they should.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I had an issue with it for like ethical reasons, I guess. I know there is a law or whatever in the industry that you're not allowed to use someone's likeness without their permission and stuff like that. So I know there's no legal issues there. I'm sure they worked it out, but just ethically, I think it's goofy to just take a job from an actor.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean for the future? Can you just make most of your cast CGI in the future, and you never have to cast a big name actor again?
Yeah, that's the Avatar sequels. But
yeah.
There's actually there's a movie called The Congress with what's her name from Robin Wright Penn. I haven't seen it yet. So I have that caveat here. But I think that's essentially what the plot of the movie is. It's people like actors and actresses selling their likeness to be in roles for all eternity, essentially. It sounds like a really intriguing premise, and it's just kind of alarming that we're getting to that point.
Right.
And guys, when whoever at Lucasfilm had that idea to be like, okay, well, let's just do CGI Tarkin, I kind of wish someone would said, great kid, don't get cocky. See what I did there?
Nice.
I made a Star Wars.
You did. You made it.
Okay.
You made a Star Wars.
This is your apartment. Get out.
Make sure you guys lock up tonight.
But to Tony's point, I think it would have been more satisfying to bring in an actor, have really talented makeup people do makeup on him and make him look a little bit like Tarkin.
Yeah.
I don't need an exact rendering of the actor. That it didn't really do anything for me. It does take you out a little bit. It takes you out of the movie a little bit because it's like, why did they do that? Or I don't know. I just don't think it needs to be there.
Right. Yeah. But I will say that if this is the biggest, like, by my count, I feel like this is the biggest flaw of the movie. This is the biggest thing. Like, even though we talked about the characters not being that well-rounded and the story kind of being a little confused and a little convoluted early on, which I kind of want to touch on that a little bit more now that we're in spoilers, but we can in a moment. But, like, those things weren't as troublesome to me as the Tarkin thing. And this is going to sound snarky, and I don't mean this as snarky, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, there are much bigger CGI-related qualms to be had in the greater Star Wars franchise as a whole.
Yeah.
So, like, if this is the biggest problem with this movie, I can accept that. It's not going to. It didn't ruin the movie for me. I just think it was an odd choice, and it took me out of the movie in certain respects. But it's something that on repeat viewings, I'll just be like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, let's be honest. It's no Jabba the Hutt in Star Wars: A Special Edition.
Right? Yeah. No one steps over him or through him, like Han does in the Special Edition.
Right.
But what'd you think of Ponda Baba and Evazan on Jedha's surface?
Yeah. The from the cantina.
Yeah.
Oh yes, those. Yeah. I'm trying to think of the Family Guy thing. Something. I'm so and so, and this is Pig Nose.
Yeah. He's like, I'm Pig Nose, and this is my brother Scott.
Right. They call it Hoth. Why don't they call it Colt?
On Family Guy.
Yeah.
No.
I'm up after the band, but anyway. Yeah. But yeah, that was such a great, that was awesome. I got a huge kick out of that. Also, the blue milk at the beginning. Did you not have
the blue milk was cool?
That was cool.
That they lingered on it a little too long,
just a little bit, yeah.
But no, it was fan service, and it was unneeded fan service. Just like I saw someone bringing up a very good point. R2 and 3PO,
yeah,
their little cameo. What were they doing on the ground in Yavin 4 if Bail Organa had just left to send the message to Obi-Wan?
That was after that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, and that was the one that was more like, okay, guys, let's we don't need that.
Yeah, agreed.
I understand that at this point you kind of want to have them in there because they've been in every other dang film.
That's true.
True.
That's
yeah.
true.
I understand that, but you could have had them on the bridge on the Tantive 4 when they opened up the doors and there was Leia.
Yeah.
They could have been there.
That would have been
made
better.
More sense.
Yes.
But then again, something that I didn't really piece together in either viewing because it's been a while since I've watched The New Hope. But I'm sorry, Star Wars, guys. Star Wars.
There's so many other things we're going to judge you for. That's not one of them.
Yes.
So anyway, is that doesn't, like, the movie, my first viewing of it, I thought like, oh, this is leading up to the exact moment of the beginning of A New Hope.
Yeah.
But it doesn't though. Like there's time in between that. I didn't really understand that or catch that until the second viewing. I kind of wish it would have led up to it exactly if they were going to go that route. But so there's time for them to, get off of Yavin 4 and go there. They can go back and regroup or whatever. There's no set like time that's between them, but
from the looks of it, I mean, another one of my notes is why do they call it episode 3.5? It's a little bit closer to 3.8, 3.9.
Yeah. True.
Because, I mean, Vader sees them leave. They, the Tantive 4 is racing off going into hyperspace. He goes back to that Star Destroyer. He's right after them.
Right.
And even
they're saying, essentially batten down the hatches, prep the escape pods,
Right.
which means they're ready for Vader and all them to board the ship. So that, as soon as they drop out of hyperspace over Tatooine, that Star Destroyer is going to be on them. So there's not, from the way I read it, there's not much time between the ending of Rogue One and the beginning of A New Hope.
I agree.
I mean, I always said I'm going to be disappointed if Rogue One doesn't end with the Star Destroyer bearing down on that Corvette.
Yeah.
It's pretty damn close.
It is. Yeah. I agree with Tony.
While we're still talking about the ending, before we go on to some of the finer details of the movie, most notably Vader, I kind of want to touch on some of the other big action set pieces or the big moments, because while we do visit a lot of different planets in this movie, I feel like each one had a very specific design and very specific feel to them, and not just like a ice planet or desert planet. It was like they each had like their own, like, they had foliage, for the love of God.
Well, you saw the down, how Jedha deteriorated because of war.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, when Jin's a child, there's soil, there's greenery, and it could have just been a different part of the planet, but you kind of get the feeling it's close because of how Saul is able to make it there in a pretty decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And then later you go back and it's not a desert planet, but it's a devastated planet. It's dirt. It's rock.
Yeah.
There's no greenery. Everything's gritty. Everything's dirty. It's like Tatooine.
Yeah.
But there's no sand because, it's coarse, it's rough, and it gets everywhere. So.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. God. Yeah. And also that when they're at Jeddah, or however you pronounce it, that scene where it's like occupied, like it had evoked like World War II imagery of like occupied forces in a tank roaming the streets, like that moment when that happened. I was like, this is so freaking cool. Like, this is amazing. Just the imagery of that I thought was handled really well. And then we have the whole like skirmish there that I thought was just really cool. How did you guys feel about that set piece in particular?
Well, I didn't feel that they were randomly roaming. If you notice, that tank was actually carrying kyber crystals.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So the Jedha rebels under Saul were going to get those crystals.
Okay. Gotcha.
But either way, that was, I mean, just, I always enjoy watching stormtroopers get tossed around like ragdolls.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was plenty of stormtroopers getting tossed around like ragdolls there. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it looked really cool, and I thought Jeddah City was pretty a cool set, if you will. But I kind of feel like the whole Saw Gerrera thing or whatever his name is.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. I just kind of felt like that was out of place, I guess. I don't know. It felt like they were using Jyn Erso to do the same thing twice. It's like, well, she's our in to go talk to this Saw Gerrera guy, and she's also our in to go talk to her dad. It just felt weird to me, and I feel like Saw Gerrera was such a like off the wall character. I don't know. I really didn't care for that part of the story. I think the action was cool and everything, and I enjoyed all that, but I would have been fine without his character being in the movie at all. I mean,
I was jealous of his Fallout power armor, though.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And that kind of circles back to what I was saying about the whole disconnect that I had with the story up to that point, or at least in the first portion of the movie. Because, and I guess we can talk about that in more detail now that we're in spoilers. But the whole thing of Jyn Erso is this rebel, or she's the daughter of the guy who helped make the Death Star, and she was then there's the jump in time of like 15, 16 years where like we see her get rescued by Saw Gerrera, and then suddenly she's not a part of the Rebel Alliance. She's doing her own thing. It's all kind of an exposition dump through dialogue, and it's kind of like that. Now they need her for that, and that's okay. But it's just a lot to take in, and a lot to have the motivation of a character kind of spelled out to us. And I felt like that was just a misstep. I feel like they should have really handled that a little bit better and a lot cleaner. And then not only that, but I felt like I didn't know what the hell Cassian's motivations were until he has that big moment after nearly killing her father, where he talks about how I guess the point of it was that he's tired of following orders. He's been following orders his whole life. There's a dichotomy, or there's a similarity between following orders either on the Empire or the Rebellion side. And what I appreciate about that, first of all, is that it paints the Rebellion in somewhat of an unfavorable light, or shades of gray, I should say.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really intriguing thing. But I wish that it was developed more and more of a through line throughout the movie, because I've seen the movie twice. I still don't quite understand what the whole thing was with him killing that guy in the alley. I didn't know if he was also a rebel and he was just betraying him. I don't know if he was just killing him because he wasn't going to survive. I didn't get that.
What I got from that was the guy couldn't escape from the stormtroopers. He didn't want the stormtroopers to know what they were meeting him for, so he killed the guy to cover the tracks.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
To make an omelet, you break a few eggs,
right?
Sort of mentality, and that like you said, the shades of gray.
It wasn't full on nefarious,
right?
But it was questionable, and you can. I know what you're saying, and
right.
That's not something we've ever really gotten, I don't think, from the franchise. And that's totally fair, and that makes a lot of sense, and I'm going to keep that in mind next time I see it. But when it's our introduction to that character, it sends a wrong signal to me. Like, it makes me think, like, is he actually working against the rebellion? Is he, what's going on with him? Because he just murdered this guy.
Han shot first.
Well, there you go.
Oh, sorry, Mike. Han was the only one who shot.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I agree though, because I feel like you're right. It was an introduction, and it feels like they set a tone, and they pretty much dropped it. Yeah. At least by the third act of the movie, it was just dropped, and I wasn't crazy about that either. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that story wise, they could have done a little bit better there.
So you guys didn't read it as they were laying him out as showing he is the kind of person that would take a sniper rifle, go up to the mountainside beside the landing platform, take out Mickelson's character, and not think twice about it. And then his interactions with Jen actually started making him think twice about it. And that's where he had the breakdown about he's been battling since he was 6 years old. You're not the only one that's lost stuff, as he's trying to come terms with everything he's done with the rebellion, even going so far as grabbing a bunch of people after she has the argument with the rebel council there on Yavin 4. And he makes a comment, all of us have done stuff we're not proud of.
Yeah.
And that's fair. That is a good point there. But I also feel like they, at that point, up until that point where he has that moment with Jin, which I think that scene was one of the high points of the movie for me, for sure. Like
yeah,
him
was good.
going, like that was the kind of like dramatic moment that I wanted out of the movie, and it delivered on that for sure. But from the moment that he kills that guy to the moment that he gets his orders to go ahead and just kill Galen Erso, so that because they don't want to deal with him or whatever the justification is. Between those points, me as a first time viewer of the movie, I was thinking like, okay, so is that guy actually working against the rebellion? And that they don't want are they working together? Like I thought it was going to be this big like reveal that it was that. So I was kind of like a little bit in the dark there.
Yeah, I kind of felt that. I was wondering if he was like a mole too.
Yeah. But then when we get to that point, it's like it corrects itself a little bit. But I feel like there wasn't enough narrative juice to really propel us to lead us down that path. It kind of was more misleading than anything for me.
Well, I guess by the fact that I recognized what was going on in the first round, we know where my moral compass currently lies.
Right.
That I knew exactly what he was thinking.
We're just a-holes.
What does this say about me?
Yeah.
Well, and really, I'm not a big fan of Diego Luna.
I thought he did a fine job, really.
He was okay. Anytime I've ever seen him, I'm like, yeah, he's fine.
Sure.
He's never blown me away specifically. He's okay.
Yeah, I thought that.
Well, he's no Mark Hamill waiting to go into Tashi Station and pick up some power converters.
Right.
That's true.
You know?
Right.
But,
I can't think off the top of my head of anything that I've really seen him in. Oh wow, yeah, nothing really. Yeah, I mean, he was in Elysium, but I've scrubbed that movie from my brain.
Yeah.
Even though I think I really kind of liked it a little bit when I saw it, but
Yeah, you
I haven't
did.
had any motivation to revisit it. He was, oh God, what I know him from is from his role in the Steven Spielberg Tom Hanks movie The Terminal.
The Terminal, yeah.
In 2004, he played a character in that movie.
He did.
Yeah. So, but I thought he did a fine job in this movie. What the problems that I had is I think that they were trying to paint him as a little bit too much of a Han Solo archetype. And I think that kind of failed a little bit for me because I'm like, these movies already have a Han Solo, guys. We don't need that. Like this era of the franchise, this era of the greater saga has a Han Solo.
I didn't get that at all.
Really?
I didn't get the Han Solo thing. No.
Really interesting. Tony, how about you?
nope.
No?
Nope.
He's not like a smart ass smuggler who's only involved like.
If anything,
That's fair.
K2SO was more of the
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I was gonna say. I thought he had some Han Solo qualities to him.
Huh. I'm just thinking more in terms of a guy who would kill a guy in an alley than anything. Kind of like with the shades of gray, I guess. But
Well,
I don't know.
like
Maybe I'm reading into
And
something.
I
that
also
wasn't there.
read into that's what they were showing right off the bat was this is the kind of rebellion we're working with.
Yeah.
The kind that's going to see the stormtroopers coming. This person can't make it out, so they're going to kill him as opposed to him leaking information.
Okay.
So
When I see it again, I'll probably have a better time digesting that.
it really it warms my heart hearing you say when you see it again.
I am definitely planning on seeing it again in the downtown IMAX, the 70 millimeter.
Nice.
You know,
Yeah.
I'd love to do that, but Miaris can't take those seats.
Yeah,
Those seats need to be replaced.
they really do.
Yeah.
Especially
And I'm
after
not
we've
even
had.
talking about the nice recliners. I'm talking about just something better than a folding chair
Yes.
with a little bit of cushioning level.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's and like I'm afraid to go to that theater again, even though it is like it's the best way to see a movie in
yeah.
Indianapolis, hands down. but after I've been spoiled with the reclining seats at the AMC theaters and at Shiloh, it's like, I mean,
I took us can't take it.
yeah. But yeah, so I'm going to see it again then, and I want to say, just kind of moving forward and like kind of highlighting on a couple other things, and we're kind of running pretty long here. The moment where they go to get to Galen, and between that like scenario or that area, that kind of really dark, rainy sequence or that location, between that and the flashes and the Force Awakens of Kylo and the Knights of Ren at the Jedi Academy thing, that's the same kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's dark and rainy. I want to see so much more of that, in the Star Wars universe, because I think that is just visually, that is just such a great visual in this universe.
And except for the two instances you just mentioned, you don't see it.
Exactly.
Everything is bright. Everything is, even Dagobah, which should have been, I mean, you saw a little bit of rain when they were in the hut, but for the most part, it was damp because of the swamp, but there weren't rainstorms or anything causing anything
Absolutely.
like that.
See, if they had more of that stuff in it, I'd be a bigger Star Wars fan. But
Needs
that
more
whole
rainstorms, got it.
right.
Yeah.
But that whole sequence there, I thought was just handled so beautifully. When the rebels come in and they have the little dogfight in the air, all of that was just really, really beautifully done. And it speaks to the kind of the way that the set pieces are differentiated throughout each location and each situation. Because as I said, it's dark and dim and there's rain and everything there, juxtaposed with Jedda's stuff where it's kind of a lived in, occupied space, like war sequence essentially. I just think that the variety of it, even though there were a lot of different locations and a lot of different types of places that they visited, I like that they differentiated it in unique ways. That's something I appreciate about the movie.
Word.
Yeah.
What he said.
Nice. And so we've talked a lot so far, and we have neglected to really mention
The scene.
Well, I wasn't going to go to that yet.
Okay.
I was going to go to the Death Star.
Yeah.
Because we haven't really talked about the way that they handled the Death Star itself. We talked a little bit about it with Tarkin, but I mean, that was another thing. So the actual representation of the Death Star, I like that they used it, first of all. So and I like the way that they used it. It's a localized hit on different areas. And I think that the visuals of that were just amazing. So what did you guys think of the way that the Death Star was represented in this movie?
It felt, I enjoyed it a lot because it felt more like a ship than a planetoid, if you will. One of the best lines in the history of ever is, "That's no moon, it's a space station."
Oh, I love that part in Twister.
But that line, I think, was fully realized with this movie because it felt more mobile in this movie, and it felt like a giant Star Destroyer, and it was so much more menacing. I think in this movie, not to take away credit from the visual work that was achieved with the original movies,
right.
But I think CGI gave it a certain oomph that wasn't there with the original trilogy, and all credit goes to the CGI technicians, if you will. They did a great job.
Yeah, totally. Tony, how about you?
My question was, in A New Hope, when you've got all the Moffs and the Admirals, whatever, around the table, until this battle station is fully operational, we are vulnerable. So those are the actions of a not fully operational battle station. They are taking out entire cities and entire chunks of planets with that laser, and they're saying no, and we've got it dialed back.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's jumping into hyperspace, going from one part of the galaxy to another, and it's not fully operational. That was the only thing that kind of bugged me. I mean, I'm glad they used it.
Yeah.
I mean, the effects of the parts of the planets that it took out, where it was beautiful. It was like 2012 level disaster porn.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
And especially when they were using the U-wing to get out of Jedha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm putting too much emphasis on the H, but anyway.
Yeah. On
Silly made up words. But
Jedha.
Jedha.
Yeah, I for one loved it. I can understand that qualm there. I mean, fully operational from my perspective is, blowing up the whole planet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I feel like in A New Hope, wasn't that kind of a bluff that it wasn't fully operational?
But they wouldn't be making that bluff around the table when it's just them.
When they've seen, I'm struggling to connect what exactly the gripe is here.
Because they're saying in A New Hope that the battle station is not yet operational.
Okay.
And the first successful test was using it on Alderaan. So now it's like, are they doing the truth from a certain point of view, as Star Wars is fond of doing, where the first successful full-on test of the laser was on Alderaan? And I don't know. This is why my name is in the Nitpicker's Guide for Next Generation Trekkers, okay? This is definitely the tiniest nit that I am finding to pick. And I had to go to my copy of A New Hope today to find that quote because it was just bugging me.
But Tony, why didn't any Bothans die in this movie?
I will end you.
I had to. But yeah, so that didn't bother me at all. But I can understand that for sure. I don't
Can we talk about Vader?
Yes, let's do that.
As he's over here rolling his eyes, the kid in the corner. Are we there yet? Can we talk about Vader now?
Yeah.
Well, first, which part of Vader do we want to talk about? Do we want to talk about how we first see him in this film? Because that's got its own interesting
Let's go
points.
chronologically.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So Vader is interrupted by his bath because
I thought that was his
Ben
vape
Mendelsohn.
chamber.
Could be. Who knows?
But yeah, so we're in. There's rumors here that the attendant that comes in to tell him that what's his name has gotten there, Ben Mendelsohn's character has gotten there, is like maybe that guy turns out to be Snoke.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure.
That'd be fun.
That's one of the attendants that you see in Return of the Jedi.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So he's been there the whole time. I don't know.
Stop.
But so there is in terms of planets and stuff, that is the only planet that they don't have the name displayed on it. And it's pretty clearly favoring, being Mustafar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's also rumors, and I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, the rumors here, the speculations, because I hate that so much with a passion. But the rumor is that this is going to play into a future movie in some way, like the fact that Vader had a place.
We see the funny
castle.
thing is Vader's. I used to, when I was in high school, used to have those Art of Star Wars books.
Okay.
And they had, in like Empire and Jedi, pre-production art of Vader's palace.
Oh, cool.
And very similar to what they use there. And, everyone's saying it looks like Mustafar. Pablo Hidalgo, one of the people that works for Lucasfilm, pretty much has said on Twitter that, that planet that everyone's asking me about, yeah, it's the one from episode 3. So Lucasfilm has pretty much said, yes, Vader has a palace on Mustafar.
Okay.
Well, and I loved that part because I think it's so twisted that he has a palace on Mustafar. It's like, this is where the worst thing that's ever happened to me happened, and I'm just going to build a palace here. So that first of all was super Vader-like. Secondly, I just love the fact, the exterior and the way that the castle or the palace was designed reminded me a lot of H.R. Giger's work in like Alien.
Yeah.
It had those.
I was
can
thinking
see that.
Saruman, but
That too.
That was my connection. I was
Yeah.
thinking Lord of the Rings, but
I've actually
I can
in
see
my
the
notes
H.R.
I
Geiger
scratched out Saruman's tower and
Yeah, nice. That too, definitely. I totally see that. But yeah, it just kind of had that effect on me, and I've always really appreciated H.R. Giger's art because he's so wacky and nuts. But yeah, the imagery during that introduction to Vader in this movie was just awesome, and then the whole bath thing was just. He's gross. He's just a gross character, and it's like he's like a monster. And I love how the best thing you can do with a monster is give the audience little pieces of it. When you show the whole it's usually when you show the whole monster, it's not scary.
Right.
You take away a lot of the mystery. You know, the unknown is scarier than the knowledge of what it actually is.
Yeah.
And I think when they give us those little pieces of Vader, he seems more monster like when they do that.
well, it's all that's left of him is little pieces, but
Right. Yeah, you're right. But I just thought that was some of the best, like, in the original trilogy, they lowered the helmet down on him and his little pod thing, and it felt just like that to me. Like that was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
To your point about it being messed up that he built his palace on Mustafar there, in my head, I am just imagining it that Anakin was such a whiny, annoying character that of course he's going to be this emo dude who's like, I'm going to build my house on the place where the worst thing that's ever happened because my life is terrible. Thing.
It's like a World War II veteran buying beachfront property in Iwo Jima.
Right.
That's like
true.
what it made me think of. I was like, man, that's just twisted. That's like so badass.
What did you guys think of the actual scene where he is talking to Ben Mendelsohn's character? I liked it. I thought that James Earl Jones, the voice, perfect. I kind of felt like the dialogue, and I'm going to preface this by saying that, if you're listening to this podcast and you know anything about me, you know that I love one-liners and puns and turns of phrase. When he force chokes him and then he says, remember not to choke on your aspirations or something, I was like, okay, Vader. Okay. That's a little, the dialogue is just like, maybe do another pass on that. I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit at that. Did you guys get any of that?
I rolled my eyes at that a little bit, and also I'm not sure who they had in the suit this time around. But there's a little bit of sway in the hips, a little sass in the walk that Prowse never had.
He's a lot more mobile and he moves a lot quicker and I noticed that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was out of character for him. They did this amazing job setting up, with the bath and everything and showing us the castle, just super badass and crazy, and then he makes a pun.
Yeah.
And he's never done that before, and I didn't like it. But I don't know. I like Ben Mendelsohn looking like a little bitch in front of Darth Vader. I loved that because I think Ben Mendelsohn is a scary guy, and he has the ability to be very menacing, but it just goes to show you how scary Darth Vader is.
Yeah.
I think Vader was just jealous of his cape game.
Yeah. Right. He rocked the shit out of that cape.
He did. It was really cool.
Most of the characters you ever see in a cape are like, dude, take your cape off. You're an idiot. Why are you wearing a cape? What are you, Superman? But he looked right in that cape.
Oh yeah. And I there's a joke to be made here, but I won't do that. All I'll say is that I kind of would have liked for Vader to kind of, maybe put his hand on Ben Mendelsohn's shoulder and say something like, do you think you're in control?
Nice.
Mirroring the Bane thing from The Dark Knight Rises. It's funny how much connection there is between those two scenes.
Yeah. Very true.
But yeah, so that Vader scene was cool. I had my qualms with it and everything. What about the scene? The only scene in this movie with a lightsaber. How'd you guys feel about that?
I went from 6 to midnight. Sorry. Yeah. I had heard rumors there was a scene like that in the movie, so I was just waiting for it. I was like, when is this gonna happen? And I'm really glad they saved it for when they did. It's like one of the very last scenes of the whole movie. And it's some of the best like force pushing, choking, and just destructive force ever captured in the whole franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, my jaw dropped and I was like on the edge of my seat. It was that effective for me.
Yeah. Tony, how about you?
Two things for me on that. First off, it was so completely badass that it totally destroys all the arguments about the New Hope lightsaber battle between him and Obi-Wan, where you're saying it's an old guy versus someone who's half machine.
Right.
He was too fluid, and this is how he should have been.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, it's just, you know, he's using the lightsaber as well as just tossing Rebel Fleet Troopers around.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, those guys playing the Rebel Fleet Troopers, they had that panic down. They have these plans for the Death Star, and that door is stuck, and they're trying to get the attention of somebody on the other side of the door. Then when they realize it's down to 2 and they realize that door is not opening, it's like, no, just take that. Just stop arguing and take the plans.
So awesome.
And they take him right as that lightsaber goes through the door, and Vader throws it open, and you just see him scrambling. He trips over the door frame, and he's just scrambling on the slick ground.
So awesome.
As Vader's just behind him, tearing through the only people you ever really saw stormtroopers kill in all the Star Wars films.
I loved that sequence so much, and I kind of figured, we're going to get a Darth Vader scene, but it wasn't really present in my mind throughout the movie. And the moment that you see, just the way that it's set up is so beautiful. It's like, you're in that corridor, you're with the rebels, and then it's just complete darkness, and you hear the breathing, and then you see the freaking lightsaber. And the moment that he did the lightsaber, I was like, oh shit, we're in for some stuff now. This is going to be good. It was really, really fantastic. And that kind of, to kind of circle back to something that I wanted to touch on a little bit. And then we can kind of start wrapping up, because I don't know if we have anything more to discuss.
Yeah.
But, the fact that this movie retroactively fixes, to an extent, one of the problems or one of the gripes that people have with the original trilogy, with the first movie, in that, they have this huge base, this huge, I almost said Star Killer, this whole Death Star, and it's like, oh, this little, like, you can fire something in this little thing and it's going to blow up the whole thing. What the hell? Like, I love that this movie corrects that. It retcons that to be, this was a flaw that was by design as a trap. And I freaking love that so much. It kind of ruins some of the dialogue in Kevin Smith's Clerks, but that's neither here nor there. I really liked it. I really liked it. Although, weren't they talking about Return of the Jedi? I don't care. But yeah, so anyway, in Clerks. Anyway, I'm all over the place. What did you guys think of that?
Jedi was, Clerks was Jedi talking about, and they were talking about the contractors.
They were.
Yeah.
I thought that they griped about that it was just that. Okay, maybe I'm thinking of something else. Anyway, yeah, it never really stood out to me as a flaw in A New Hope, which is surprising, because going back and listening to OV144 to 146, I was nitpicking the shit out of those movies.
Slightly.
Yeah.
You
Twilight
had a thesis statement.
I did. Twilight with Muppets, but
Get out.
Anyway. But yeah, which I don't even remember. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, so, but having that included in this movie, having like that, them thinking like, okay, well, let's fix this. First of all, I love that it's, them thinking like, okay, well, what are some things that George Lucas messed up on?
Yeah.
It's like, let's fix that. And I love how it fits so well. How did you guys think of that? How did you guys feel about that plot element for this movie?
I mean, I liked it as well. I mean, it did explain. Everyone has always had that question since they've watched A New Hope. Yeah. Why is there this big flaw? And we've all had that question, and this answers it really well. And even if that's all the whole movie did, I think it's successful. And it did way more than that. So obviously it was a good movie. And yeah, I'm glad to have that question answered. Being fans of Lost, I think we acknowledge that you don't always want your questions answered, and it
Right.
can be a good thing not to get them answered. But that was something that we've all wondered before,
Right.
and it's kind of cool to have a conclusive answer for it now.
But did the X-wing, as it was plummeting into the gate, did the shriek of it? Did it say the word Han?
Shut up.
That's a reference to season 2 of Lost, or season 1's finale of Lost. But anyway, hashtag Hurleybird.
Nice reference.
Anyway, yeah, thanks. But yeah, Tony, how'd you feel about that? Before you run out of this apartment and never contact us again.
No, because it's going to take me a few minutes to get my microphone back. These microphones aren't cheap. No, I think you're right, and unfortunately, that was a thing that was spoiled for me.
Oh yeah,
on Twitter was someone going along the lines of Rogue One was great. Now the haters about the thermal exhaust port will shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
that's a bummer.
Bag of dicks. But yeah, you're no longer bleeping, right? Yes.
Oh no bleeps.
No bleeps.
Yeah, see, I went ahead and held off on learning the whole George Carlin 7 words.
Oh,
nice.
So we'll save that for the next time.
Yeah. There we go.
AKA never. But no, seriously though, that was a great plot point, great story point.
Yeah.
Was that they grabbed a hold of this little nitpick that everyone's had. So even though you've got to admit, Torpedo's doing the 90-degree turn down.
Right.
A little goofy.
But it's space fantasy, not straight science fiction.
Right.
So.
Right. The Han Solo movie will correct that. No doubt. So yeah, to kind of wind things down a little bit. One thing I do want to mention before we kind of wrap up the episode is that, when talking about the Death Star and displaying the power of the Death Star and everything, I like the way that the movie integrated the kind of 70s sci-fi aesthetic of the control panels and the designs of the costuming and everything, and they integrated into a movie that is present day. Like it was a seamless thing. Like I love that, and I'm a fan of that kind of design of like kind of 60s, 70s sci-fi movies. Well, like Moonraker is one of my favorite Bond movies because of that. But yeah, Tony, I know that you have a big history with costuming and stuff. So how did you feel about the integration of the old and the new style?
Well, that was something I actually had a note on was, even the appearance of the actors, the facial hair, the sideburns.
Yes.
It all was reminiscent of what the actors looked like in 77 through, when Jedi come out? 83. Around in there.
83, sure.
So, yeah, just smile and nod.
Yeah.
Just sit there and look pretty, Matt. That's what you're here for. But no, and like you said, they did. I mean, I don't know if it's exact to what you saw on A New Hope when they were flipping the switches and starting the beam up, but it looked very, very close, and it looked very good, and it just fit.
Yeah.
Even all the way down to what you saw on the planet surfaces on the different planets. The jail cell they were in was very reminiscent to Jabba's jail cells, and just, everything kept the same design aesthetic.
Right.
And it was just really good how they, unlike other things where, Star Trek for example, is notorious for setting something earlier but making it look better.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, heck, even the prequels set stuff earlier but made it look better, even though their excuse was, everything broke down over time due to the war. But
right.
Which, did you guys notice that the transport that Jyn was being carried in was also the same type of transport that was used by the Republic forces in the prequels?
I did. I noticed that.
I didn't notice
and I
it
was
at all.
like, oh man, I knew I was a bit of a nerd, but this is like a nerd moment.
It's like
Yes.
they're acknowledging the prequels in this film.
Right. In a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed that as well, and I feel like what they did is they blended very well. They blended that old style, if you will, from 1977. No offense, Tony, with modern CGI tactics. But I can point to Episode 3, at the end of episode 3 where Yoda and Senator Organa are having that conversation on the ship, and it's all that style, and it's all CGI, and it looks like shit in that movie. But this movie, it felt right. It feels like they blended the CGI with those old filmmaking, not old, but practical effects. It felt right. They blended it well, and I think it was a good homage to the original trilogy.
Well, the question is, and like I said, because after the second trailer, I tried to avoid any and all information about this film.
Okay.
How much of this is CG and how much of it was practical sets and practical effects?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Remember J.J. Abrams for Force Awakens brought back, he blended the CG with the practical, but he did not do the George Lucas shoot everything on a green screen and fill it in later.
Right.
He had actual sets and actual actual props, actual makeup on creatures and stuff like that. So now that I'm done avoiding spoilers, I'm kind of interested to see how much of that Edwards. Gareth Edwards, right?
Gareth Edwards, yeah.
I'm curious on this. I'm curious about that myself, and I feel like in episode 7, The Force Awakens, I felt the practicality of it more than I did with Rogue One. But again, there wasn't just a ridiculous green screen like the prequels.
Right.
It felt much more natural in Rogue One.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one last thing for me.
Sure.
As she was climbing up the tower to get up to the dish, when you hit that hatch that would just randomly open and close.
Yeah.
Was I the only one thinking Galaxy Quest, this episode was poorly written or badly written?
Oh, that's funny. That's a funny
I didn't
reference.
make that connection, but I will now.
But I'm just seeing that. It's like, why do they have a hatch? Just randomly opening and closing.
That's pretty good.
Oh, yeah. That reminded me of like a video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Galaxy Quest, and they're going through the whole chopper sequence. Or
yeah. Yeah, my butthole puckered up on that one.
Me too, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and about the Death Star, and we can, again, start winding down and wrapping up. Did you guys know the Rian Johnson cameo? Have you guys heard about that?
No.
The guy that was throwing his arm over his eyes as the lasers going by.
Where there's
the platform without the safety rails.
Yeah, without the safety rails. Yeah, he's one of those guys.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I thought that was pretty cool. Like that's pretty awesome. And of course he's directing episode 8.
Yeah.
Right.
And also my thought of my confusion over Clerks making the reference to A New Hope, the exhaust port, whatever it is, thermal exhaust port. I was there.
So you were there. You bounced around both sides.
Yeah. That the confusion was that they referenced it in the Family Guy Star Wars things. Yeah.
Wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't asking. What's the one flaw? Yeah. Yeah. I thought of that.
We can fix it, but let's see how much it costs. Let's get estimates or whatever. But yeah. Okay, so I guess we can kind of wrap things up here. Final thoughts on Rogue One. How many more times are you guys planning on seeing it? Will this grace your Blu-ray collection? And how do you feel about it overall? And I was wondering, should we start doing ratings for movies that we
Why?
I give one every time, I think.
I think so too. Yeah. Tony, you're a listener. What? Any suggestions?
Why?
Okay.
You like it, you don't like it. For a while there on my
Gotcha.
Media Mondays, I was doing how many beers did you need to, or how much did you need to drink to enjoy the film?
Nice.
Just enjoy a nice glass of juice, or just keep the drinks coming, sort of thing.
When Obsessive Viewer was only a blog, and like the 6 months before we started the podcast, and I was just writing reviews and stuff, I had a meticulous rating system that was based on would you blind buy this would be the top of the line, see it in theater, blind buy, and buy it used, rent on Netflix, rent on Redbox. It was really convoluted and weird. So so let's scrap the whole rating thing, because obviously that's an asinine.
Well, I like to do it because I feel like people, when they read a review or hear a review, some people just like to have that number. they can
Sure.
point to. And so that's why sometimes I like that myself. You know, how many stars did they give it? What did they give it out of 10?
Right.
So that's why I throw it in. But
Okay,
I
gotcha.
understand it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, Tony, you listen to the podcast, so I will defer to your judgment, and you already said no, so that's good enough for me.
I don't care. I'm going to do it.
I'm sure the Facebook group is going to dogpile on me because they're all going on ratings.
Probably.
Right.
You know,
And I
all
believe-
5 of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is the perfect time to say, if you haven't joined the Facebook group, please God join the Facebook group.
Yeah.
We actually do have some good stuff there. But anyway, and I believe that this is the second time in recent weeks that I've asked for feedback live on the air on the podcast from a guest. So I am so sorry. Anyway, overall thoughts, and then we can wrap up. Tony, you want to go first?
Okay. Well, you know, you asked. Yes, this will be gracing the blue way. Marriage, love.
Perfect.
Nice.
Yes, this will be gracing the Blu-ray collection upon release. Not sure if I'm going to go with any ultra special edition. I mean, I'm still waiting for the original trilogy to come out on Blu-ray because, you know, Disney is going to figure out the amount of money they're going to be able to make there.
Yeah.
So those will be coming out.
They'll do it someday.
I would think that they would, you know, do it for this May since it's the anniversary.
I think they're going to wait till after episode 9.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ultra giant box set that comes in a Death Star case.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
But
Or a Star Killer base case.
shut up.
Same difference.
I'm up to here. Okay? This isn't even my podcast. I'm up to here. It's going to grace the collection. It exceeded my expectations, even though I will admit my expectations were low, despite wanting to see something that was my Star Wars. But, you know, it still was, no matter how much we dance around it and how much you want to make fun of it, it was a prequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's a side story. It's not the main storyline. It's still a Star Wars prequel. And like I said, even though those had their moments, overall, they were not the best. So,
Right.
Right. Yeah. Tiny, overall thoughts on Rogue One?
I did like the movie. I feel like I kind of took a lot of shots at it, but I mean, I know Tony doesn't like this, but I would give it like a 7 out of 10, maybe 7.5.
You're horrible.
For reference, I think I gave episode 7 an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. I loved that. But it's a good movie, and it will be gracing my Blu-ray collection as well.
Nice. Yeah, it was cool. I tweeted this out, but if the anthology movies, if the standalone Star Wars movies continue down this path, like I came out of The Force Awakens not being like a diehard Star Wars fan. Like I went into it thinking like, okay, well, we'll see if it can make me interested in it the way that Star Trek, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek made me want to check out Star Trek. So that achieved its goal, but I didn't come away from it thinking like, oh, I'm a massive fan of Star Wars now. But I came out of Rogue One thinking, you know, if they continue down this path where they create these really interesting realized versions or stories that would fill the gaps of the franchise as a whole, I could see me maybe being converted down the road, and I think that it's a step in the right direction, and for me, and I really liked it. There were some qualms there that I had some issues with the story and some issue with the CGI that was used and everything, but overall, even though the characters weren't quite there for me, I was really along for the ride, and I think that it was a really, really strong movie, and it makes me excited for what's to come. And speaking of which, final thought, Han Solo anthology movie. How are you guys feeling about that? Because I'm still after Rogue One, after The Force Awakens, I'm still thinking like, we'll see. I don't want like a origin story of how he met Chewie or anything. I just want it to be a prequel story with Han Solo, young Han Solo. How do you guys feel about it going forward?
Well, it's going to be a young Han Solo and a young Lando.
Mm-hmm.
So past there, I haven't given it any thought.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't put too much thought into it either, and I mean, obviously, I'm going to go see it, and I'm probably going to like it. So,
right.
I mean, it's almost not even really worth thinking about it that much to me. But there are certain things I would like to see in it. I want to see him meet Chewie. Like, I want to see that. I mean, I think that'd be fun. And
sure,
one of my gripes or my personal qualms about Rogue One is I didn't feel super grounded to me in the franchise. And I think part of that is because, with the exception of Tarkin and Vader and a couple other people, there's none of the original characters, or the original characters, we don't get any meat from them, I guess. And I think if we have Han Solo featured in a movie, I'll connect to it a little bit more and maybe like it a little bit more.
That's understandable.
I don't know. I heard the kid from The Walking Dead, Chandler Rigg, was at one point was in the front runner to be cast in him, and when I heard that, I was like, no, which that kid just sucks. Yeah. He's not a good actor. So I was like, really, I think he has a good look. I think he could look like Han Solo, but he's just a terrible actor. Right. So
you know that they've casted
I know they have, but I'm saying when I heard that, I was like, oh shit. I was really worried about the Han Solo movie.
Right.
See, when I found out it wasn't going to be a television series that would have an old Han Solo with like an eye patch sitting on a bench talking about the young Han Solo adventures.
Oh,
is that a reference? Is that a reference to something, or is it a genuine?
The Young Indiana Jones.
Young Indiana Jones.
Thinking,
is that how it? Oh, okay. See, I had no idea that's how Young Indiana Jones. Get off my lawn! Oh wow. Well, I think we've talked out this movie quite a bit. This is a big episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I guess this is as good a time as any that this is the last episode for 2016. We're gonna take a week off for the holidays and also to kind of gather our data for our big year in review episode that's going to come in a couple weeks. So, having said all that, I hope you guys have a great holiday, and I'm all the time now, I am almost ending this podcast with what I say at work and in my call center job. But before we go, Tony, thank you for coming and being on the podcast. Really great to have you here. And once again, why don't you give everyone a rundown of where they can find you online and your work and everything?
All right. Once again, I'm Tony Troxell at Indiana Geeking on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook, Google+. I no longer have a Tumblr. You can also find the blog at geekinginindiana.com. It is going to be coming back with a vengeance in 2017.
Beautiful.
Going to get back to content Monday through Friday. Going to start trying to alternate between a podcast and a YouTube video every week. I'm going to start building a puppet. We're going to be having an Indiana Geeking puppet.
So awesome.
You can also keep your eye open for me at any local conventions. I stand out very well. I'm the big bald guy with the facial hair wearing a Hawaiian shirt and a fez. Yeah, I really stand out at a convention. Yeah. Half the people there look like me.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks again for coming on, and I'm glad that we got to have you on for Rogue One. And
anytime.
Yeah, awesome. And all right, well, if that's all. Also, before we go, check out my solo side project podcast, Anthology, which I'm wrapping up season 1 of The Twilight Zone and wrapping up my bonus review series of Black Mirror. I'm going episode by episode. So check that out at anthologypod.com. And thanks again to Tony for joining us, and thanks again to Mike, our co-host on sabbatical, for calling in with his review. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time in the new year in 2017 for our year in review episode. And having said all that, thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, guys.
I kept forgetting how I end the podcast. Right. The Han Solo movie will correct that. No doubt.
Oh, shit. I was trying to turn off my microphone. I'm so sick.
Oh, I really don't want that edited out either.
That will probably be the tag. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, we can kind of start winding down here because Tiny's about to die.
I am.
Life is a terminal disease. Anyway,
Jesus, man.
So yeah, to kind of.
Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at obsessiveviewer.com, or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@obsessiveviewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at obsessiveviewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer and follow us on Twitter at obsessiveviewer, at obsessivetiny, and at IamMikeWhite. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, obsessivebooknerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.